The long-awaited Cyno has finally come to Genshin Impact, and his reception is, well, pretty decent. The general consensus is that he's a pretty good unit and very fun to play, but he's definitely not overpowered. His power level as an electro on-field damage dealer is pretty comparable to Aggravate Keqing, who, don't get me wrong, is actually pretty good, but he's just not super meta because he doesn't really have a team where he can truly outperform other characters. Also, Fischl exists, who's not only a 4-star character that everyone most likely has, she's also arguably one of the strongest characters in the game. So if you're not really interested in Cyno, you definitely don't need to feel forced to get him. But it also seems like most of the internet is obsessed with him, including me, so chances are most people will probably still pull for him. And so to all those people, there is actually some good news. On top of the general sentiment that he is very fun to play, I believe that there is also a really good thing about Cyno that's not being discussed a lot. And that is the fact that he's very efficient with resources and investment, which not only makes him very free to play and casual friendly, but also means that you can get him to high investment very easily if you are a veteran player. There are several things that contribute to how efficient he is, and some of which were honestly pretty unexpected. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you about all the things that make Cyno a good character at a relatively low cost. Alright, so the first thing that I want to talk about that makes Cyno such an efficient character to invest into is how easily you can get a good weapon for him. Even though his best weapon is obviously going to be his signature 5-star, he actually has an amazing free-to-play option that comes in the form of the 3-star White Tassel. Okay, I know. Using a 3-star does sound kind of weird, but the White Tassel at Refinement 5 is so good for Cyno that I can outperform most 4-stars and even some 5-stars. And the reason is because not only does the White Tassel have crit, which is very good for Cyno, the effect also gives damage percent on normal attacks, which is a big portion of Cyno's damage as he uses his normal attacks a lot during his burst. The only 4-star weapon that could be slightly better would be the Deathmatch with refinements, and even general attack percent 5-stars like the Vortex Vanquisher performs about the same as the White Tassel. The overall weapon ranking is right here if you need it, and as you can see, the White Tassel is a very solid option. But if you still aren't convinced, just look at the combat footage on screen. In fact, all the combat footage that I use in this video is my Cyno with the White Tassel, and as you can see, that's pretty good damage. So yeah, one of the main reasons Cyno's so easy to invest into is basically because everyone has access to such a good weapon for him. And just like the weapons, it's also pretty easy to get good artifacts for Cyno. Even though Cyno does want high investment crit artifacts that are pretty fucking painful to farm, there are actually a lot of things about him that make the artifact building process a lot easier. First of all, his Ascension stat is crit damage, and that paired with the fact that his best free-to-play weapon is the White Tassel, which is a weapon that gives crit rate, makes his crit ratios actually pretty easy to balance. But not only that, because of things like his Ascension 4 passive, he actually scales really well off of EM. This plus his inherent attack scaling and his abilities allows him to make good use of artifact stats that aren't crit. So if you have an artifact that didn't go all into crit and instead went to EM or attack or even ER for his burst, it can still be pretty good for Cyno. And the same thing applies for the main stat of your Sands. Even though an EM Sands would be preferable because of his passive, an attack Sands would be pretty comparable or even better in some situations. So in general, you can be pretty flexible with it and choose the better one depending on the substats. And you can be pretty flexible when choosing the artifact sets as well. The best set for Cyno will be the 4-piece Thundering Fury if you do all his optimal combos, but the 4-piece Gladiators and Thunder Soother aren't really far behind. Gilded Dreams can work as well, and you can even mix and match 2 pieces that give attack, elemental mastery, or the Thundering Fury. So not only do you have a lot of options, it's also pretty easy to farm because the Thundering Fury and Thunder Soother set are in the same domain. And on top of all that, you can also go to the Artifact Strongbox for the Thundering Fury set. So overall, even though Cyno does want the high investment crit stats, it's actually a lot easier to get good artifacts for him than you would expect. And finally, one more thing that makes Cyno very efficient and especially free to play and casual friendly is his playstyle. Cyno is a hyper carry, meaning that he spends most of his time dealing damage on field. Because of this, a significant portion of your team's damage can be carried by him, so if you're a newer player, you can pair him with supports that don't need as much investment. And since Cyno spends most of the time on field, you also don't need to worry about complicated rotations as much compared to some other teams. And don't worry if you're a veteran player, a lot of high investment off-field damage dealers also work really well with Cyno. In fact, one of the characters that has the best synergy with him is Beidou, who can deal a lot of damage as well if you invest Messenger. And even though he can perform pretty well on field without doing anything too complicated, there's still combos that you can learn to make him perform even better, so you definitely won't be missing out on fun mechanics if you're worried that because he has simpler rotations, he's gonna be less fun. And as an added bonus, unlike other hyper carries like Xiao and Ito, his normal attack damage during his burst only scales off of his burst damage, so you don't need to level his normal attack talents at all, making him resource efficient in that aspect as well. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you guys want an in-depth Cyno guide, I'll link a really good one in the description. And as usual, if you guys liked the video or thought it was helpful, please do like and subscribe, it really helps a lot.